It's a tribunal putting the university on trial for police brutality, for privatization, and for violating students' free speech rights, with a focus on our lawsuit against UC-Berkeley from the Occupy Cal movement back in 2011. But also this is obviously more than pertinent, and just even more pertinent now, today, than it even was 4 years ago. So on the panel, the panelists will introduce themselves. We have our lead attorney and plaintiffs in the case. A bunch of our plaintiffs are not in the Bay Area anymore, are gonna try to join the way that they can, but those of us who are in the Bay Area are here. So first I wanna start with our lead attorney.
So I'm Shanta Driver, and I'm the national chair of BAMN. And it's been my pleasure and my torture to represent the people sitting at this table and those that are not present. Not because they've been tortuous, but because the legal procedure in such a case is tortuous, and it's so bizarre that you have to kind of twist yourself around and try to get your head out of your behind to actually figure out what reality is.
Okay, my name is Benjamin Lynch. I'm a research scientist here at UC-Berkeley. I came here in 2006 as a postdoc. I've been studying solar physics ever since. I'm an organizer with BAMN, and I was part of the demonstration on November 9th.
My name is Anthony Morielli. I'm a master's student here in Asian Studies. I was an undergraduate during the Occupy protests. I was arrested during the night raid on the protest of November 9th, and I'm a plaintiff in the case.
My name is Max McDonald, and I was an undergrad here at Berkeley during the Occupy period, and I was here during the Occupy scene and at the protest, and I'm a plaintiff as well.
And I'm Yvette Palarka. I'm a national organizer with BAMN, and I'm also an alum of UC-Berkeley. I got my master's in education here, and I now teach middle school in Martin Luther King Middle School here in Berkeley Unified.
Great. So I want to start by making kind of an overview of what the case is, and also the importance of the case, and then show some of the video highlights that are kind of part of the foundation for our claims against the police and against the UC administrators that were responsible for setting the actions that occurred on that day in motion, and then give the plaintiffs an opportunity to talk who are here. Plaintiffs, it's a weird word, and it means the people in this case who are bringing suit, who are suing, the administrators of the University of California, including the then Chancellor, Robert Bourgeois, who lost his job because of what he did on that day in terms of making the decision to brutalize students who were carrying out a peaceful protest.
You're saying he lost his job at Chancellor because of that? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing about public officials who lose their jobs because of public scandals is they oftentimes say that they're leaving the job to spend more time on research or enjoy enjoy the company of their families, or and
they try to hide what they did.
That's right. They try to hide what they did, and they try to hide the strength of the movement that was able to make them pay with the loss of their job for what they did. They'll be clear from the videos and from a little bit of what I say and other people say what the events of the day were, but they were essentially two different protest actions that were a continuum, but one was in the afternoon in which there was a police attack, and then there was a second police attack against protesters in the evening. And by the time the evening protests began and they were the police were called out again to brutalize protesters that came out to protect the right of UC students to set up a few tents and to camp out on the grass near near on Sproul Plaza, but out of the way of any traffic or anything else. By the time that second police action was started, the chancellor had already received thousands of telegrams and emails and letters and, phone calls and whatnot from alumni, from donors, from professors, from other members of the campus community saying, what the hell did you do? And a lot of the alumni, their emails were really simple. They were like, you need to go now. They weren't, they were not asking for the facts of what happened. They were declaring the necessity from just hours after that first attack took place of the chancellor stepping down. So the chancellor and the rest of the people who were part of something called the crisis management team, which was a team of administrators who had been set up to manage crises, including large-scale student demonstrations that the administration believed would offer some kind of a danger to the campus, are one set of defendants. And then the other set of defendants are police officers, everything from the chief of police of the UCB police force to individual officers, including Alameda sheriffs. They were Alameda sheriffs, they were UCSF police, they were Oakland police, all of whom were called in to participate in the beating of peaceful student protesters on that day. So those are the defendants. And where we're at in kind of legal terms with the case is that everything now is in the judge's hands, and it will be up to the judge which of our claims against the various defendants should be tried and which ones should be dismissed. And we were asked, as the lawyers for the plaintiffs, to justify going forward with the claims of police brutality of each and every one of our plaintiffs against a particular police officer and or their supervisors, and to justify our claims against the administration of setting in motion policies that included the brutality itself, the excessive force by the police against students, the false arrests that were made of several students, including Anthony, who was arrested and held and in the end charged with nothing, and for the First Amendment violations that were the kind of political legal basis for the whole case. Those are, from our standpoint, it was the repression of free speech of students, and that repression carried out through a policy of extreme violence that has been the most important driving force behind going forward with the case. I want to just say a few things to begin, and then, as I said, have other people speak and let people see some of the videos, and then open up for discussion. Because I don't want to focus overly much on this or that legal particular of the cases. I don't think that those are that important, but I think that there very well may be questions that people have about them that are worth moving forward in the discussion. I think that the summation of what took place this took place in 2011 in November, and as I said, it was part of the overall development of the Occupy movement. And the university administration had been planning what to do if Occupy came to the Berkeley campus from September on. They had been having meetings of the crisis team. They had been talking to various police forces. They had been planning out a strategy that included them relying on elected student government leaders who they wrote editorials for. The administration ghost wrote editorials for, like, student officers to try to convince people not to be for bringing Occupy on campus, and to try to show that there was unanimity between the administration and students to oppose fee hikes, which was a central issue that was being discussed and contemplated at that time. And that strategy was already in the process of being developed by the time the first Occupy demonstration happened in November. I think what really set Oakland and Berkeley apart from any other place and any other campus in which there was the possibility of creating an occupation was that by the time the Occupy movement got to California, it was a movement that had more dynamism than it had when it was occupying Wall Street. But more than anything, there was more dynamism created for the movement by the decision of the then mayor of Oakland to decide to do a huge police raid against the occupation that was occurring in Oakland. And that was a very, very well-run, very orderly occupation that included, people going around and making sure that women were safe at night, that had organized a hospital for people that might be hurt, that had set up a daycare to make it as possible as it could be for anyone to become a part of the occupation, that held regular decision-making meetings that decided pretty much everything about what the strategy and the tactics of that occupation would be. And the decision of the mayor to go in and just break up the camp using tear gas and batons and stun guns and everything else just created a massive amount of public outrage in Oakland and connected Berkeley students to Occupy Oakland. And that police raid occurred in the end of October. After that, there was a ginormous demonstration that shut down Oakland for a whole day of people who, I think for whom the Occupy action itself was kind of incidental, but who saw the police excess as being something that had to be taken up and fought. And so there was that demonstration. There was support that was organized for a strike of the longshoremen that was going on that would eventually lead to a whole national strike of the longshoremen that just ended this fall with one of the most favorable labor contracts of recent times being ratified by the longshoremen, and Oakland longshoremen being the most radical of all of the longshoremen and the most determined to take that strike forward. And that in and of itself was the radicalism and the confidence of the Oakland longshoremen in this recent strike, and this year's strike, was really predicated on what had taken place in 2011 when they had thousands of people come down and stop scabs from being able to get cargo off of ships that were coming into Oakland during that labor action. And that just enormous show of popular support for these longshoremen. Longshoremen are paid really, 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 really well. They are kind of the labor aristocracy of American workers, and it's not unusual for people to make $200,000 a year being a longshoreman. And so there had been this popular ideology that no one would support a strike of longshoremen because you're so privileged already and there's so many poor people in Oakland, and people will be asking themselves, how dare people who earn so much get to go out on strike and stop Walmart from getting goods from China or whatever. And what took place around Occupy and that outpouring of support just cut through all that false ideology, all that crap. And it made it clear that no, people in Oakland and in Berkeley are not idiots. And everybody understands that it's going to take labor solidarity and fighting to hold on to any gains in the labor movement, to have any chance of the people who are poor and suffering being able to have some kind of hopeful future. So that was kind of the background for the Berkeley action, and I think where the administration was right in feeling the danger of what would happen on November 9th, 2011, where they were right was that they had their own sense that the students from Berkeley who had marched to Oakland to be part of the shutdown of the ports and to be a part of the shutdown of the cities and to secure the rebuilding of the camp in Oakland, the mayor had to back off in the end. And after destroying the camp, she had to allow it to be reformed and rebuilt. And that was a really rare victory for Occupy. And so I think where the administration was right was that action had radicalized a whole layer of students on this campus who were coming to understand that the demands that they had been fighting for, including ending the fee hikes, stopping the privatization of the university, restoring affirmative action programs, fighting for rights for undocumented students on this campus, fighting against the sexism and homophobia on the campus, fighting for the rights of students, that those demands really had a chance of winning if you could plan and execute a struggle that showed the power not only of the students on this campus, but the power that a student action could have in gaining support from the greater community. And I think that sense on the part of the administration that the Occupy struggle on this campus could be more than an action that was destined to lose. It was more than something symbolic or contemplative, that Occupy on this campus had the chance to point out nationally how Occupy could actually start to win gains that could address the questions of social inequality. That scared the hell out of the administration. And they made the decision prior to November 9th that they were going to do whatever they could do to stop Occupy before it ever got started. So from the morning of the day of the action, they had police at the different entry points to the campus that were looking through people's bags, trying to take the elements or signage of camping or Occupy, like confiscate those from people who were entering the campus before anything began that day. They made clear, and they had already brought in Alameda and some Oakland police. They wanted to make clear from the beginning that they were going to try to stop Occupy before it got started. There was, at about noon on the 9th, a rally. There was a march through the streets of Berkeley. The march returned to the campus. There was a general assembly, and there was a vote taken at that general assembly to set up tents and to begin the process of really building an occupation at UC-Berkeley. And I think as of that point, I think most of the people who were involved in and it was overwhelmingly students, most of the people who were involved in that decision were not expecting that there would be any kind of real resistance from the administration. There had been occupations at a lot of universities, and the universities had figured out how to delimit those occupations, but nobody had come in with, swinging clubs to get rid of occupiers. And most of the campuses, the Occupy chapters were super duper lame, especially on more elite campuses like this, where people put career opportunities above any principles that they stand for in almost any fight that they undertake. I think, it's not that the students who were engaged in the protests were thinking to themselves, oh, well, I really don't believe in my principles, and if it threatens my chance of getting a really good job, I'm not going to do it. But there was not the expectation that that the view of the administration would be that this demonstration would be so different than anything else that had occurred on the campus in the past. And so when the first couple of tents went up, and this was in the afternoon, I think people were expecting there'll be some tents that go up, and a lot of people were leaving the demonstration. People were going off to class. They were thinking, well, the march is over, the rally's over, the first General Assembly's done. Let's just go to class, and when we come back, maybe there'll be a few tents up, and and we'll come back and we'll have another rally in the evening and another discussion. But literally within minutes of the attempt by students to erect the first couple of tents, the police moved in and grabbed the tents. At that point, they weren't police in riot gears. They grabbed the tents, they brought them down, and it was a very unexpected show of force. At that point, I think a number of the students who were there did feel like, well, we can't tolerate this. I mean, this is just crazy. We have the right to protest, and all our protest entails is putting up a few tents. Like, that ought to be something that can be tolerated and, in fact, ought to be protected on this campus. And so a few more tents went up, and when the police re-emerged in full riot gear and lined up to try to get to those tents, the demonstrators who had come out made kind of a human, people linked arms in order to try to put up resistance to the police going in and taking down the tents. And the police response to that was to jab people with batons, to swing at people with batons, to grab people by the hair who are in the bushes. And I mean, people will see that on the videos. It was really, really shocking.